Our speaker today is Matt Weinberg. Matt is the SVP of Consumer Experience at Drive Motors. With nearly 20 years of experience in the automotive industry, he has an in-depth knowledge of the psychology and behavior of the American automotive consumer. He has a passion for partnering with dealers and driving their online success. And without further ado, I will turn it over to Matt.
Thank you, Aaron. So put customers in the driver's seat, let customers couch their own deals. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Again, my name is Matt Weinberg. Have been in automotive for a little bit over 20 years. And as Aaron stated, I really enjoy working with and educating dealers, and especially enjoy talking about the psychology of the American car buyer. I actually go so far back that I remember getting leads when I worked in dealerships faxed to me from AOL and Auto by Tel, and those leads did not even have email addresses. So I've been at this for quite a long time. The agenda that we're going to be walking through today is first that buyers hate your current customer experience. Today's customers expect a lot more from us. When we let buyers actually drive the car buying process, what we find is that we can actually earn more customers and make more money. And then for those of you that are interested, which hopefully will be all of you, we will also talk about what next steps are in order to help customers actually couch their own deals. So buyers hate the current customer experience. And maybe that's harsh, right? The word hate is pretty strong. But I think this is the reality that we live in. Customers today do not like the current car buying process. As I travel around the country talking to dealers and dealer groups, one of the questions that I'm consistently asking them is, if you could describe in one word, how do customers feel about car dealers, what would that one word be? And the most common answer I get is dishonest or untrustworthy. And then I get some people that may be a little bit more cynical, moving towards sleazy or shady. And then sometimes I'll get a dealer that will say thieves, right? Which is even probably the most cynical. My favorite answer that I've actually received is suspect. The reason I like that one is because I don't know that customers actually automatically assume in today's environment that the dealer is dishonest or untrustworthy or sleazy or shady or thieves. However, they suspect that they might be. And so it's really interesting to listen to dealers about, what is the customer perception of car dealers right now? But the thing that I always stress with my dealers is that whether it's dishonest, untrustworthy, sleazy, shady, etc., all of those actually lead to one more important word, which is the word fear. Because they suspect that you might be dishonest, that you might be sleazy, that you might be shady, they're actually afraid. They're afraid that they will be taken advantage of. And so as we, as car dealers, think about how we are positioning our brand, how we are positioning our marketing, how we're positioning on our website and in our showrooms, we need to always keep in mind that consumer psychology starts with fear in the automotive industry. It's really important that we always keep that in mind. And in case you don't believe that car buyers hate the current car buying experience, I'll share a little bit of data with you. 4,002 car buyers were recently asked if they like the current car buying experience. 17 out of 4,002 said they did. That's less than half of 1%. Less than half of 1% of car buyers like the current car buying process. More than half of them said that they would actually buy cars more often if the process was better. I'm in the auto industry. I just shared with you, I've been in this business for 20 years. My daughter just turned 17. I travel a lot. My wife wants me to get a car for my daughter so that she doesn't have to drive her around. We've got 3 teenagers, so I'm sure for those of you that are parents, you can relate to this. I'm in the auto industry, and I am dreading going through the process. And I'm talking to car dealers right now. I talk to car dealers every day. I'm not excited about going through the process. Now, if you're a car dealer in South Florida where I live and you add Drive Motors to your website, you may find that I'll use that to my advantage and I'll couch my own deal and come back from you. But this is the reality of the situation right now. And 66%, 2 out of 3 customers actually said that they would be much more likely to buy from a dealership that provided the experience that they preferred. So 2 out of 3 would come and buy from you if you provide them with the experience that they want. But today's customers expect more. Why do we expect more as customers? We all do. Everything is at our fingertips today. Hopefully none of you are looking at your phones right now, but if you think about the smartphones that we have in our pockets right now, they have access to a huge chunk of the top inventions ever created by humanity. The printing press, right? We can read on our phones. The telephone, obviously, I'm using my phone right now. Radio, television, I can listen to music. I can watch TV shows all on my phone. Video camera, electricity in the form of light. I've got a flashlight on my phone. So all these incredible inventions, and then I think the 2 most important for our topic today is a computer and internet. That's all inside my phone. So everything is at my fingertips at all times. And so we expect more as customers because we can reach things and get information and data and make purchases a lot quicker today. Some of you may have the privilege of living in a part of the country where Amazon now exists, where you can actually get things delivered in under 2 hours. So we like things fast and easy, and leading retailers are raising the bar tremendously. Amazon's obviously the easy one to talk about, but they're not the only one. We've got Zappos, Apple, etc. We've got lots of disruptors trying to raise the bar from a retailing perspective, and they're trying to make it easier, faster, more convenient, and more transparent for us as consumers. And in the automotive industry, we as dealers need to take note of this. I also often ask dealers, hey, are you an Amazon Prime user? And most say yes. And then I ask, okay, why do you use Amazon? And never once has anybody said to me, because it's the cheapest. Why? Because they're not really the cheapest anymore. But we all still use them because it's easier, faster, and more convenient. They are raising the bar. So we as dealers need to improve the experience that we are providing customers. Customer experience is expected to overtake price and product as we move closer to 2020. And in the auto industry, this is already happening. I'll share some data in a little bit that shows that. But also, I mean, from a product perspective, most cars are pretty good cars. If we're in a segment, right, whether it's luxury, domestic, import, the vehicles are to a certain extent interchangeable. They're all fairly high quality at this point. And so that leaves just price and experience. But we're going to talk more about the fact that experience actually matters more than price already. And as we look at companies who are really focusing in on customer experience today, they're doing it for 3 main reasons: retention, CSI, and upsell and cross-sell opportunities. So we as dealers need to move in this direction as well, because if we don't, the car buyers are going to go somewhere else. They're going to go somewhere else and try and get the experience that they desire. That could be in the form of third parties like TrueCar, ultimate price transparency. More on that in a little bit. Disruptors like Carvana. If we don't give them the experience, they are going to move on to third parties. And this can be really, really dangerous for us as dealers. Let's look at Toys R Us for a second. For those of you that don't know, Toys R Us recently in September declared bankruptcy. There's been quite a lot of conversation online about why did Toys R Us fail? I mean, here was the biggest company in a multi-billion-dollar retail environment. Now, the bottom line, by the way, is that the biggest reason that they failed is because they were bought out in a leveraged buyout in 2005 and had between $5 and $6 billion in debt on their books that they couldn't repay. But keep in mind, when that leverage buyout happened, expectation was obviously that they'd be able to pay off that debt. Otherwise, they would not have executed that leverage buyout. So the next question is, what led to their inability to pay off that debt? And there's two main arguments, and I think that they're actually both part of Toys R Us's failure. The first one is that they actually in 2000 gave Amazon control of their e-commerce and fulfillment for online shopping. Toys R Us actually started forwarding traffic to Amazon. Again, this is why we as dealers need to be really cognizant of the fact that if we don't provide the customer what they want, we're actually training them, as Toys R Us did, to shop from somebody else. And by the time Toys R Us realized their mistake, they were so far behind the eight ball, and they had already trained the American toy buyer that Amazon was the place to buy toys. The other thing was customer experience mistake. Here, they had a retail environment, lots of retail spaces all over the country, and they kept it as a mediocre retail environment. One of my favorite quotes I saw recently was from the CEO of Warby Parker, who's turned a eyeglass company, a disruptor online company that sells glasses, into a multi-billion-dollar company in just a few years. He said, retail is not dead. Mediocre retail is dead. Toys R Us had the opportunity to have Lego contests, Nerf gun day, right? They could have had customers coming in and playing in their retail space, kind of like Apple does, right? You go to the Apple store, you can mess around with their stuff, and then you buy it. So from a customer experience perspective, they also failed, and they trained the customer to buy from somebody else. So we as dealers need to be really careful, because the more we drive customers to third parties, the more we're training the customer not to buy from us as dealers. So the solution to this is to actually let the buyer take control. Allow the buyer to drive the car buying process. And so the way that we can do this is by making it easier for the customer. One way we can do that is by optimizing for mobile. So like at Drive Motors, our technology is built on the same platform as Facebook, which is a mobile-first platform. 40 to 45% of our over $500 million in car orders that we've helped facilitate for dealers have actually taken place on mobile devices. And that makes sense. You know, even when my desktop is open and I want to buy something on Amazon, I typically go to my phone and do it. So more and more, mobile is going to obviously continue to be more important. Differentiating calls to action. You know, drive the customer to an online checkout. Don't have too many calls to action. I think that's really important. I'm going to stress that a couple times in this conversation. I know you guys have all heard it, but one term that I've actually recently come across that I've taken on as my own is, if you have too many calls to action, they become calls to distraction. And then personalize the online and offline. When a customer comes back to your website, maybe they've already started an online checkout or they've started the process. Have it so that experience, they don't need to re-enter information, but do it in a way where they don't need to create a login. I think that's really critical. The number 2 reason for e-commerce cart abandonment is asking a user to create an account or give user information. So you want to do it in a way where it's on your website, but they don't need to create a login. That's really important. Make it faster. Every day, week, minute that goes by, we as American consumers expect our buying process, our e-commerce experiences to be faster. So increase your website speed. Focus on crucial content or essential content. One of the other reasons why customers go to third parties for their experience is because we as dealers are not providing all the information and value that they're looking for. Be the first dealer in your market that offers downloadable reports on the 3 things you should do with your trade before you get it appraised, or the 5 things you should know before you buy a car, before you walk into a dealership, or the 3 things you should know before you walk into the F&I office. They're going to find this information with or without you. Why not be the one dealer in your market that steps up and provides it? And by the way, when you do it, make it a downloadable report, meaning they need to give you their email address so that you can email them the report for them to download it. You've got a lead. You can market to them. Again, reduce clutter, right? Again, too many calls to action create calls to distraction. I know you guys have heard this till you're blue in the face, but follow up quickly, right? So whether it's a lead, whether it's an order through online checkout, the speed at which we follow up with the customer is critical. And then simplify forms. I think this is a really interesting one. I think that there's some companies that have really keyed in on this lately. But make it easy for customers to fill out forms. When they click on a drop down where they can choose what to enter into the form, so they don't need to type it out, especially, again, because a lot of this is happening on mobile. It's harder to type on mobile. So, for example, here at Drive Motors, when a customer is filling out an address form or an address field, once they start typing in their street number, we actually use Google Maps API and their IP address to show them the addresses that start with 1, 2, 3, 4 that are close to them. And then they can click on it, and they don't need to fill in the street name, the city, the state, the zip code. We populate it for them. Make things easier and faster for them. And then this is my favorite one. Make it more transparent. I'm a huge advocate of transparency. My business cards at my last company were actually completely transparent. I'm working on getting new business cards here that will be transparent. My last company, we became the 26th fastest growing company in America, the fastest growing company in automotive, and the fastest growing company in advertising and marketing, simply by offering car dealers transparency into their Google AdWords and Bing accounts. It's really intriguing and interesting to me because the same dealers that were so excited about having transparency and helped us grow so quickly still today don't offer that same experience to their customer. And the reality is, ladies and gentlemen, that we live in a transparent economy today. You as dealers expect transparency from your OEM. You expect transparency from your vendor partners, from your marketing partners, and most importantly, you expect transparency as a consumer. One of my favorite quotes that I've been sharing with dealers is from a gentleman named Alex Boguski. Most of you probably have not heard of him. He's the most famous ad man of this century. His clients include Coca-Cola. I could probably stop there. That's probably the most prized advertising client in the world. But to top that off, he also has had Kraft Foods, Microsoft, Burger King, Volkswagen. And the quote that I love sharing from Alex is, transparency is not a choice. The only choice is, does it happen to you or do you participate in it? And as dealers, it's been happening to us in the form of third parties because we're not giving the customer the transparent experience that they want, and they're forced to leave and go find it somewhere else. And that's where Car Gurus, TrueCar, Cars.com, Edmunds all come into play because they're getting the customer closer to that transparent car buying experience that they desire. So let's be transparent. Provide realistic pricing online. The largest unmet need online, according to the customer in a recent survey, was access to realistic pricing and payment. More on that in a bit. And keep visitors on your own website, please. One of the big mistakes I'm seeing, and again, look back at Toys R Us, driving traffic to Amazon. You do not want to create a bait and switch feel for the customer. If they are on your website and they click on something that says online checkout or express checkout, please do not have that open up a new tab or a new website. As a customer who, remember, we agreed at the beginning that we have to understand that their psychology is one of fear when they're viewing dealers. If they're on a dealer website and they click on a button and a new tab or a new website opens, they're immediately going to become suspect. Just like we would. If you were on Amazon or Zappos and you clicked on something and a new tab opened, your first instinct would be, wait a second, was this a bait and switch? Am I on Amazon anymore or not? And or you might even think, hey, did somebody hack Amazon and suddenly I'm on some, black hat site? You're certainly not going to put information in at that point. So keep them on your site, give them a transparent experience. And it works, ladies and gentlemen. It works really, really well. One of my favorite stories is Southwest and their transparency campaign, which is one of the most successful campaigns of this decade. It worked really well for them because their focus is and has always been on customers. No checked baggage fees, no change fees, and focusing on customer experience and transparency works. Southwest has been profitable it'll actually be 45 years in a row in a couple of weeks when we hit January. So they will be profitable again in 2017, making 45 years in a row. I was amazed when I came across that. And by the way, just because I was so amazed by it, I did a little bit of research. And in that same time frame, 27 airlines have declared Chapter 7, and 60 airlines have declared Chapter 11 bankruptcy, including all the big ones that you may fly. American, U.S. Airways, United, Continental, Delta, Eastern Airlines, which is now part of the all of these guys declared bankruptcy during the same time frame that Southwest and their focus on the customer experience has led to 45 years of growth in a row. So transparency and a focus on the customer experience absolutely works. So as dealers, we need to put the customer in the driver's seat. We need to give them control. They're already walking into your dealership fully prepared to buy the car. They're already doing all this research online. They're already finding a transparent experience via TrueCar and Car Gurus and others. We need to step up and give them control. And frankly, they're willing to do the more and more of the process online. And again, a big part of that is because of the fear they have when they walk into a dealership. By putting them in control, we will actually earn more customers and we'll make more money. We'll have a higher gross profit per vehicle sold. Why? Because customers go out of their way for a better experience. One of the really interesting data points I came across preparing for this webinar was that more people say that they will drive farther for a great salesperson when buying a car than say they will drive farther for the lowest price. So 65% said that they would drive farther for the lowest price, but 73% said for a great salesperson. I equate great salesperson to a better experience, right? That's the customer's perspective is a great salesperson, that means somebody they can trust, somebody that gives them a good experience. So we need to give customers control, and in exchange, we're going to actually sell more cars. Why? Because it builds trust and loyalty. One of the key indicators of increased profits is actually around F&I upgrades. So one thing we already know from car buyers is that a car buyer who's been exposed to F&I product before they go into the F&I office is more likely to buy F&I product than somebody that has not been exposed. And this makes sense. I tell dealers all the time, I say, look, you could have the best F&I manager to ever work in a dealership, and they could do a textbook explanation of why a customer should buy gap insurance. I mean, we're talking one that should be recorded and shared with every F&I manager in the country. And the customer is still likely to say no. Why? Because they have a fear that the car dealer is taking advantage of them. So even though it made perfect sense, I'm going to say no. If, however, I am on my couch in my pajamas as the customer, couching my own deal, I can do research. It's not a high-pressure situation. I can open a new tab and I can do research. Should I buy gap insurance? Should I get an extended service contract? Should I get prepaid maintenance? And so what we're seeing, we have a large publicly traded dealer group that has our online checkout in all of their stores, and they're seeing that when somebody goes through online checkout using our tool on the dealer's web, that on average they make more than $700 in additional profit, and it's almost all from F&I upgrades. They're also more likely to use your service department. 81% of Americans said that when a brand is transparent, that they will try everything in that brand's portfolio. For us as dealers, that means that they will come into our service drive. That's really important. One of the lessons that I learned a few years ago from my friends at Lithia is that a customer that has serviced with you, never bought from you, is more likely to buy a car from you than somebody that's already bought a car from you but never serviced with you. I'm going to repeat. Customer that's serviced with you but never bought from you is more likely to buy from you than somebody that's bought from you before but never serviced with you. And by the way, just for clarification, obviously the customer that's bought and serviced with you is the most likely to buy a car from you. But that's really relevant because if they're more likely to go into your service drive because you give them a great customer experience during the buying process, you now have created a lifetime loyal customer that's much more likely to buy from you again. And they're also much more likely to refer customers to you. And one of the examples I give of this that I think really matches up well is Quicken Loans. You know, when I got a loan from Quicken Loan, it wasn't really that much different from the previous mortgage I had gotten, except it felt different. They made it faster, easier, and more convenient. They still had to come to my house. I still had to sign a bunch of paperwork. But within 4 weeks, I had actually told my CEO about the experience, and he had a Quicken loan at that point as well. So they're going to refer more customers to you as well. And we've talked a lot about the fact that it's going to increase profitability. I shared some data from a publicly traded group, but 86% of Americans say that they will pay more for a better experience. You and I do this every day. You tip more when you get a good experience at a restaurant. You know, you stay at the Courtyard instead of the Motel 6, right? You pay more at a slightly more upscale restaurant than you would at one that's a little bit lower scale, right? So we constantly do this. Every single day we're making this assessment. But 86% of us say we will pay more for a better experience. And I shared earlier that the largest unmet need online when car buyers were asked was access to realistic pricing and payment information. And by the way, this is why TrueCar, continues to grow, because that's what they're offering the customer. But still, this was the largest unmet need. What's interesting is that a study followed 19,507 automotive transactions. One of the questions they asked the customer was, did you have access to realistic pricing and payment online? When the customer said yes to that question, on average, the dealer that sold that customer a car made almost $800 more gross profit than when the customer said, no, I didn't have access to realistic pricing and payment online. So it's the largest unmet need, and it leads to a spike in gross profit. So we were founded at Drive Motors to help dealers give customers an easier, faster, more convenient, more transparent car buying experience on dealer websites. And I think that's really, really critical, is that we're dealer first. We want to help dealers do this on their website, natively, looks and feels like part of your website, and gives the customer a much better experience. And we have the resources to do this. So we have investors like Y Combinator, who was an investor in Airbnb and Dropbox, Bullpen Capital, who invested in Zynga and FanDuel, and Tesla Ventures, who invested in Square. So we just raised $5 million. So we already had amazing technology. We already had a large publicly traded dealer group, but we're not satisfied. We're going to continue to help dealers by training them on how do you give the customer a better experience, which again is going to increase gross profit. And also, by the way, we're seeing it increases CSI as well. We talked a little bit about that earlier. So to take the next step, you can download an ebook from us, Let Customers Couch Their Own Deals. You can also come to our website at drivemotors.com and request a demo. And you can email us at info@drivemotors.com as well. So we'll open up to questions.
Okay. Hey, thanks, Matt, for the great presentation. If you guys have any questions, please keep sending them in through the panel on the right-hand side of your screen. There are a couple I'd like to bring up right now. First one is, will customers really buy cars online without ever seeing them?
Hey, great question. So, we're finding that customers are buying all sorts of vehicles online. So from, cheap $5,000 used cars to Bentleys. We've gotten orders on Bentleys as well. So it runs the whole gamut. And listen, customers will still come to your showroom to shop and test drive vehicles. That's one of the interesting things that I think is unique about Drive Motors. We're not trying to replace the dealership. The showroom is still a critical part of the car buying process. Some customers absolutely will just buy a car online, sight unseen, but we've known that for a long time. I mean, in 2003, 2004, 2005, I was selling cars on eBay, right? I was shipping cars all the way across the country. So that's not anything new. I think more and more customers will move in that direction as we continue to offer them an online checkout process that feels and looks more like Amazon. But again, they're still going to utilize your showroom, but instead of having to go through the current car buying process, which again, less than half of 1%, they don't want to have to spend the hours negotiating, going through the F&I process, et cetera. So they'll be happier because they've saved a lot of time. Most of them are still going to come to your showroom to finalize. But yes, they will absolutely buy cars online, and we're going to see that that's going to continue to increase.
Okay. Next question does relate to online as well. I'm wondering, why is it so important to keep the online checkout experience entirely within my existing website?
Yeah, and I think this is one of the most critical things that we as dealers need to keep in mind, because there are some tools and products out there that are trying to offer an online style checkout for the customer, but there's a couple of reasons why it's so important that as a dealer we keep it on the existing website. One is trust and rapport. Again, I mentioned this earlier, but if a customer clicks on a link that says, buy online or express checkout or online checkout, and a new window opens up, they're going to immediately draw back. They're going to immediately, again, that fear that they have that, wait, this is a car dealer and another tab just opened. But again, the other thing relates to the Toys R Us story, right? We need to be really careful as dealers about driving customers to third parties that are offering this experience, because when we do that, we're actually training the customer to utilize that third party, just like Toys R Us did with Amazon. So you do not want to redirect your customers to a third-party website or competing experience, because it can feel like a bait and switch, and it can erode the buyer's trust.
Okay, that's great. This one also is related to online as well. It says, if a customer places an order online, how can his or her F&I team ensure they don't miss out on relevant upgrades or add-ons?
Yeah, that's another great question. So I think one of the critical things as we move in this direction is to not get too far ahead of ourselves. So I used the analogy of Quicken Loans earlier, and the fact that when I used Quicken Loans, I still needed to sign paperwork in person, and I still needed to talk to somebody. There was still human interaction, right? So it's really important that we give the customer control, but we're still there to help walk them through things. And so what we're finding is that when they come in to pick up the vehicle, we know that they've maybe already added some F&I product, but we get a second chance in the F&I office to actually share F&I upgrades. And again, they've already exposed themselves to it, which means they're more likely to go ahead and buy them. And so one of the examples I like to share is you may have a customer that buys a 7-year extended service contract, but doesn't buy prepaid maintenance. And it's a really quick and easy conversation for a well-oiled dealership team to say, hey, Aaron, I noticed that you got the 7-year extended service contract, but you didn't choose the 4-year prepaid maintenance. Most of our customers that get the 7-year extended service contract also get the 4-year prepaid maintenance because they're going to save X number of dollars over 4 years. Is that something you wanted me to add back in? And so you still have that opportunity, that human interaction, to actually get a second chance at upselling them on the product. I hope that makes sense.
That was great, yeah. And that wraps up our Q&A session. Thanks to those who sent in questions. For those who attended, we really appreciate the attendance and participation today. Matt, is there anything else that you'd like to add before we end?
No, just again, really love helping dealers in this area of customer experience. So feel free to reach out to me as well on LinkedIn or somewhere else. I love coming and talking to dealers. So please reach out to me. I'm happy to answer any questions firsthand, personally. And I appreciate everybody joining. It's exciting times in our industry.
Indeed, yeah. Thanks again, everyone, for attending, and I hope you have a great day, and reach out to Matt, and feel free to attend future Drive Motor webinars. Thanks again.